Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and well, this is actually no kind of show. This is just a different snippet. I saw this topic on Spectrum, and I felt, crap, I have to comment on this. And it's a post by Sense Amid Madness, and I'm going to put the link in the description below. But he's asking, would the Polaris be better off without the hangar? And he goes on to say, here's my argument. The Polaris is a capital ship killer, so it will be looking for big targets such as Idris frigates, Hull Ds, Orions, frigates of Vandal origin, or just large ships in general. So what is the point of wasting all that space for one measly fighter? What difference is one fighter going to have going up against such big ships? Why not scrap the hangar and put a railgun? I know that is ambitious, or that is pretty ambitious, but even a S5 turret with maybe another turret or anti-fighter missiles on the bottom would be nice. What do you all think? Now, first off, I think that you're underestimating the value of one fighter. Because you're just assuming that it can only be one fighter for just combat reasons. And I think I'm going to credit this idea to Citizen Gamer, because it was the first time that I had, directly heard it. But I believe he, on one of his shows, was talking about the Polaris and talking about using that fighter to relay targeting data to the Polaris. Now, I might take that one step further and say use a Hornet Ghost, swap out the center section with the radar dish from the Hornet tracker, and then use that to relay, targeting solutions to the Polaris. Sort of switch that radar into passive mode, and then just have that kind of little quiet eye in the sky out there looking out for you and helping you track down ships that fire at them from beyond visual range. But overall, I think that is the value that you're really going to see out of the Polaris's hangar bay, rather than one single fighter for combat purposes. I think it's going to be more a utility that you can realize in the universe, depending on how creatively you use that. However, on the other side of things, I'm kind of a guy who likes to have, different options. So, if I were a Polaris owner, I'd be sitting there and saying, why not have that space capable of being converted for different types of use in different situations? Maybe you want to use a Polaris to quickly get a whole bunch of ground troops to a specified location, and you need the facilities to support those ground troops. That could be a use. I mean, could you make it so within the interior you can drop a ramp towards the side ramp, I guess in kind of a weird way, so that you could store maybe a few ground vehicles in that space, and then maybe just kind of have them kind of go down through the ship's interior and then down out the side ramp on the Polaris, and deploy that way. I mean, that space could also be used to store extra torpedoes, to lengthen a combat tour, so that you don't have to constantly be running back to base to reload your torpedoes, but being able to, say, mount another weapon in there, a large anti-capital weapon, hopefully something like an energy weapon, so that you're not always having to expend money to attack capital ships, could be interesting as well. But once again, that would be something that would have to be balanced against usability. You kind of want people not to be spamming anti-capital weapons in space, right? And I kind of see that's why they kind of put the torpedoes in there. It's because you don't want Polaris owners going out there and just decimating cargo ships and whatnot, because there's an added expense of having to fire each torpedo and having to buy each torpedo before you can even fire it at the enemy. So overall, I don't think that the hangar is a weakness in the Polaris. I mean, I doubt there's a Polaris owner out there who would look at that hangar and say, oh, you know, I don't want it to be able to be changed to, you know, another gun mount or extra torpedo storage or, you know, the ability to carry land vehicles. No, I just want it as a hangar. But I think the value of the hangar is underestimated. I mean, even if you can't do targeting information relays or anything like that, even if that's not possible, because that's not a definite 100% thing, but just being able to say, put a Hornet Ghost or put a Saber in there, and to be able to go out and look for vulnerable targets while, you know, the Polaris just kind of hangs back and maybe hides itself behind an asteroid, or however that may or may not be possible. I think there's going to be a lot of value in that. And I mean, the Polaris in general, when I look at the Polaris and what I look, you know, what I see and what I possibly see kind of it becoming in the game, I think that the Polaris is going to be the ship of choice for players who like to seize the initiative. Players who aren't reactive, who are proactive, who go out there and get things done. And more so than any other capital ship that a player can own in Star Citizen, I think that the Polaris is going to be the ship in terms of org versus org warfare that is going to set the pace in the game. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh no, the Idris is going to be good as a set piece to defend fleets, to deploy fighters. The Javelin is going to be good for probably laying siege or being a strong point in a defensive line." But I think that the Polaris is going to be, you know, the ship that really sets the pace, because it's going to be the ship that can get there first and hit the hardest out of the faster ships, and it'd be able to get out before the, you know, the larger ships or before other players can react. And I think that that is the value of the Polaris. I think that this is going to be a ship that the owners of this ship are going to absolutely love this ship. No doubt they are going to love the Polaris. And I think in the end, CIG is going to regret it. I think that the Polaris, honestly, is going to be like far more popular and far more powerful in the hands of players than an Idris or a Javelin would ever be. It's going to influence the battlefield more than the other two ships. As far as capital ship warfare goes, I mean, the Polaris has that speed advantage, so truthfully, I think it's going to be able to avoid the Idrises and Javelins and still prey on those larger but far less armed ships. So in an org versus org warfare situation, you're going to see Idrises and Javelins kind of protecting strong points and kind of being like these centerpieces in these large defensive fleets. But I think that it's going to be the roving Polarises that are really going to influence the battle much more so in an org versus org situation than the Javelins or the Idrises will. I really, that's my honest opinion when I look at it, as I think that the Polaris is going to set the pace in Star Citizen in org versus org warfare. This is gonna be the ship that people really look at and say, this is what we need more of. And there's going to be a lot of them out there. I mean, pricing wise, obviously there's that, and I think that you're going to see a lot more of them go out during the anniversary sale or the Citizen Con sale if they do become available, which I highly doubt they won't. I think this is going to be, in terms of capital ships, this is going to be that this is going to be the big ship, so to speak, in Star Citizen warfare in the future. Even if, like, let's say I was in a situation where someone said, I will give you either a Polaris, an Idris, or a Javelin for free. Totally free. You can't trade them in and say, well, you can sell a Javelin and buy an Idris and a Polaris or anything like that. But if you could just have one ship out of all three, I would pick the Polaris hands down every time. hands down. It's better to be the person that sets the pace than the person who's following. It's better to be proactive than reactive, and this is the ship for that. So yeah, I think the Polaris is. I think if there's anyone who's like looking at it going like, yeah, whatever, I think they're gravely underestimating this ship, and I think that yeah, it is going to be the it ship in capital warfare in the future. So even though, yeah, would I like to have options on a Polaris? Would I like to be able to change the hangar bay to suit different mission profiles or different activities? Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. But overall, do I think that the hangar is an inherent weakness in the ship? No, I do not. Anyways, yeah, that's my opinion on the Polaris and its hangar. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.